Please, I'd love for someone to show me where these peaceful protesters have been in Kenosha, Wisconsin. There might actually be some, but all we have seen so far is destruction. At least after the death of George Floyd, there were actually instances where you could see people congregate for protests without all the violence and criminal activity. It's as if these rioters and looters were ready at a moment's notice to ruin the lives of many in the Midwest city. But the chaos is to the point that we need to begin asking questions that people are neglecting in times like this, which ironically do have answers. Possibly one of the biggest questions in all this is, why are the leftist politicians who called the unrest a myth when talking about places like Portland and Seattle, the same politicians who are eerily silent when it comes to the violence in New York, Chicago, and now Kenosha? Hey everybody, thanks for joining me one more time here on MRC-TV. I'm Nick Kangadis. Right off the bat, we're gonna play a little game. It's kind of a compare and contrast game. The differences are probably going to be pretty obvious to those with at least half a brain, but let me know in the comments your take on what differences you see. How did we go from this?
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
To this.
Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
How did we go from this?
I think many people are trying to insulate young people from adversity, insulate them from the things that give them strength.
To this.
We also gave those who wished to destroy space to do that as well.
And Rawlings-Blake said that 5 years ago. How did we go from this?
How did you deal with color and race when you were climbing the corporate ladder? My answer, I didn't. Let them deal with it. I didn't focus on that.
To this.
What happened to Floyd happens every day in this country, in education, in health services, and in every area of American life. It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, get your knee off our necks.
The answer? The simple answer? It's 50 years of race hustlers like Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Shaun King, and Cornel West. Divisive rhetoric like that coming from the mouths of people like Jackson and Sharpton are being taught in schools. Cornel West is a frequent speaker on college campuses across this country. This is the same dude who said we have a, quote, neo-fascist in the White House, unquote.
When you have white supremacist perceptions, sensibilities, and practices coming from above in a neo-fascist moment with a neo-fascist in the White House.
Heck, the Marxist Black Lives Matter organization, the same one that talks about wanting the destruction of the nuclear family, is working with school systems.
I wanted to share day 4 what my daughter is being taught in her school over here in East LA. You got the anti-fascist, you have the Black Panthers Power to the People logo, or the Chinese CCP communist logo. This is communism. This is Marxism being taught in our schools. I actually talked to the principal today. She was a very nice lady. I'm not going to say her name. And she said Black Lives Matter is working with the school. She told me flat out, the school is working with BLM.
Think of it this way. If more people stopped buying what the race hustlers are selling and quit letting them use their shtick, which has always divided us way more than anything else in the last few decades, they would be out of jobs. But since that unfortunately isn't reality, the combination of race hustlers, the perversion and deliberate rewriting of history in our government-run public school system, and cover organizations for communists like BLM and Antifa are the tools for how we got here. And none of them could have done it without political correctness. Now, I've railed on political correctness before, but I can't stress enough just how much damage PC culture has done to this country. It's a subversionist tactic in order to shape the way people think and speak. It's been dangerous and still is dangerous to our way of life. If someone tells you that you're not being politically correct, just smile, say thank you. Notice how I said a minute ago that all of the things I've just talked about are quote-unquote tools for how we got here. In order for those things to be tools, someone, something, or some entity has to be using it, right? Well, what are the biggest plagues on our society currently that attempt to shape the way you or I think and speak more than the radical media and politicians? The radical media are the ones that give the race hustlers the platforms to speak. The politicians are the ones that give public schools the curriculum and narratives to indoctrinate American children with, while also throwing more and more money at the school system when their policies always eventually fail. And both the radical media and politicians enforce a PC culture to subliminally sanitize the average person's brain while also telling people what they consider to be right and wrong. Keep in mind that the radical media does what they do for ratings and ad dollars, while the politicians do what they do for power. Let me just leave all of you by saying that a part of me is glad that they do all of these things. To an extent, hear me out. I'm glad the radical media gives those people the platforms they do. I'm to a lesser degree glad the politicians have done what they've done to the school system. And I'm glad that both the politicians and the radical media push a politically correct agenda. You know why? Because without all of that, I wouldn't be able to clearly understand the difference between right and wrong. So have I lost my mind? Am I speaking any kind of sense here? Is the truth still valued? Let me know in the comments, where I do read most and respond to some. Oh, and don't forget to follow me on Parler. If you like this video, don't forget to share it with as many people as possible and give it a thumbs up. Those are the two best ways to let us know you want us to keep these videos coming. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that they might actually let you know when MRC-TV comes out with a new video if they haven't taken it down already. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. For MRC-TV, I'm Nick Kangadis.